Trust is at an all-time low. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, technology is at the fastest pace, most adoption it's ever been, right, in the history.
Sometimes.
And very, very few companies think that way. And what happens is when an individual start to actually take ownership of your voice, of who you are, I'm speaking passionately about this because I am it. I am literally the embodiment of this shift. This shift from being the voice of the company and what other companies believe I should be. You will never come off authentic and trustworthy if you're trying to fake it for somebody else.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Joshua B. Lee with my amazing wife, Rachel B. Lee.
Hello, everybody.
I don't know why I did my announcer voice, but that's how we're starting today. No, y'all, seriously, I think this is one of the biggest things, right, Ray? I mean, we're talking about will we trust our own personal brand? And I mean, like initially we started recording and somehow I kicked into this, let's go to the radio voice and go through. And I don't know if I'd trust Josh as the radio man. No, Rachel tries to do it, but she really can't swing it. But that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about Up, and, Prince could not miss his time to shine. He wanted to make sure he's a fashionably late. But seriously, y'all, like,
this is our toy poodle, just in case you're not listening, it's your first time listening or watching with us, and he's like 7 pounds, and he always needs to be on the podcast with us.
I think you're giving too much. 7 pounds. Again, I don't know if I'm going to trust that personal brand. I think you're exaggerating, and this is where people get caught. They start talking about their personal brand, and they're like, "Oh my god!" Especially but especially too, like, right, like they talk about their authenticity. They had such a hard life. They lived back down by the river, and down by the river means they were at their yacht house, hanging out. Okay, I guess I'm missing it today. Rachel just thinks I'm hilarious. So, Rachel,
I do love when you start the podcast because, like, you don't know what to do. Like, you need that guidance, actually. And so,
are you the guidance for my personal brand?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, you really need me to lead you. And so, so you're just rambling, which is funny.
You hear that, guys? Men, women, ladies, everybody in between.
But one of the things that I think if you were to say, is Josh, quote unquote, trustworthy 10 plus years ago versus today, probably have a lot of different opinions, right? What brought that level of trust or not?
I think people have always trusted me. I mean, that's why I've been able to do business for as long as I have. I think that I trust myself, and was I being trustworthy in what I represented online versus who I was internally. And I think that's the big thing, right?
And like over time, by not being true to your values, by being in a business where it was about the monetary side and you were, chasing transactions, and like it was great, right? For a while, you're making a lot of money. You talk about that. Yeah. And it was great for that time. But if you were doing that today and you were trying to sell people on something, which is what happened, right? It started to be like this, I'm not going to buy from him because he's clearly not into it. He's clearly not aligned. And we see that a lot where it's like people are in these jobs that they don't feel aligned to, but they have to, or they should be, getting this promotion, or they should be making 7-figure business,
You know what that should be life?
Oh my God. Well, Amy Eliza Wong was our client. She's also a TEDx speaker, and she's an amazing human. Her whole thing was on the shoulds that rule our life. And most shoulds are completely misaligned with who we are.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, if your goal is to make money, potentially screw over people, I mean, look, you can lie and cheat your way into making a lot of money very quickly, and then reset your brand, and pretend to be someone else. I mean, like,
wait, you think that,
dude, people do all the time. Like,
it is crazy. Like Martha Stewart.
There's so many people that have been on stage and they're like, "Oh, look at me, I'm this guru." And then next thing you know, like, you talk to them off. Well, we've had the opportunity to talk, and I'm like, "You're it's 6'7".
Oh,
is that not how it plays?
Too much time with Skylar.
But I mean, like, it's different, right? I mean, so like that's that.
There are a lot of people,
and I mean, I knew a lot of
mirrors.
I grew up a lot. When I started my first company, especially in the online advertising world, there was a lot of people, Ray, that would go through, and yeah, they make a whole bunch of money, they'd screw people over. I've been screwed over many times. And next thing you know, they pop up because again, back then you didn't have to actually show your face or anything like that. You just had a name. You just change your name and pop up as a new identity, and they'd run another business and another scam. And they'd be jumping from one thing to the next. And
It is crazy, and it's making me think of
but even entrepreneurs now don't
no,
hold on. They follow the trends. They jump from one opportunity, like all the freaking people that were selling, hey, buy my prompt pack, right? I
yeah.
mean, and then next thing you know, and it's like, this is where I think AI is gonna really
Do you
flush everybody out.
okay, so like do you think people's meter is much higher and more crisp than ever before? An example that's going through my mind is, I'm not going to name names, somebody that we know that we've worked with in the past has been doing videos on Instagram and Facebook ousting somebody else that we know, not naming names, and really bringing to light how this other person is fraudulent, a complete liar, has stolen over $20,000 from her. And my first,
Don't tell too much.
no, and that's why I'm not naming names or anything like that.
Just enough
My
context.
my first reaction actually when seeing this person I know ousting this other person was like, whoa, like that's super aggressive, right? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of people that are people. Am I going to go call them out? Like, whoa, in videos and like their name and like all that? Or the other side of me was like, thank you for calling out this person who, by the way, we did work with for a little bit. Thank you for bringing this awareness. And a lot of people have actually, said like, me too, that happened to me. And so there's like, is trust now also calling out people or calling forth people? Like, do we need to start actually naming when people are like, is that what we're into? Like, or
I don't know
how
if I
do
need.
we make sure that doesn't happen to us?
I don't know if you need to do it publicly. I mean, like, look, I did that. This was what, a year or two ago. Someone that I held with high regard, someone that I considered a mentor and a friend. And I thought he, kind of stole and screwed me over a little bit. And I did it because I just, was hurt, whatever. And then I shortly thereafter took the post down because I didn't want to be that person. It's just me. Now, if someone asked me directly, and I have many
Yeah.
conversations, I was just at Jim Quick's event, and I was talking with a good friend of mine. We were talking about different people we know, and he's like, "Hey, what's your honest opinion?" And if someone asks me specifically about that person,
Yeah.
I'm always going to be honest. Do I need to say it publicly? I don't think so because again, I don't need my personal
Brand
brand
associated.
associated with that person. Now, if
But
someone,
then also if you also want to dissociate yourself sometimes.
I guess, I
You know
mean,
what I mean? Like if somebody's but like what's his face that
I
came
think we're to the president.
well, I mean, but that's like the most serious like thing. It's like, okay, like yeah, let's say you did do business with Trump or somebody
Oh,
that is very controversial, that is either going to make somebody really piss off and never want to do work with you, or actually support you more. It's like, are we in a time where we need to take those stances? I actually do think it's better to take a stance. Do I think that
I
we
could take
need
a
to call
stance.
out people publicly? I mean, I don't know. Maybe we
I
do.
have no problem taking a stance on where I stand and what I believe in and what I will and will not do.
Yeah.
I don't know if I always need to publicly call out one individual person.
Even if I guess like we don't need to like go down the rabbit hole
Yeah, I mean,
so hard, but I think
I
like
still want to
I'm
get back to.
curious. I am curious if you when you listen to this episode, we'd love to hear your opinion on that and just like what is the line, right? Like one,
And before I call anyone out, I'm always going to give them the opportunity to be able to make amends. Because look, I think everyone makes mistakes.
yeah,
And look, here's your opportunity. Like step up. I mean, the same person that I talked about, I did try to reach out. I got no response. But surprise, I mean, it was amazing. 2 seconds after I posted, I mean, I literally got a call and it was like, "Oh, why would you do this?" And I'm like, bro, like, you're like, why didn't you call me? Like, dude, I did. And so It got worked out, but I mean, it's just we live in a world where like it seems like a single voice isn't as powerful, maybe because
I think a single voice is incredibly powerful. The personal brand
I mean, how many things have we gotten?
is the trust.
Think about back in the day. I mean, like if you really wanted to get a big company's attention, right? What you do? Go on Twitter, you tweet at them, and then all of a sudden you'd hope that they're is it X at them? I don't even know what freaking you call it. What do you call
You're
it
making
now?
me think of like all that that happened on planes and people would like showcase. Is that what like you're thinking of on Twitter? Like this and this happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things. So, I mean, like we've trained the world to be able to call people out publicly to be able to get responses. Brands.
Brands.
But I mean, like, look, we're talking about personal brands, right?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting distinction there, right? Because something feels more personal, which like
so if you call it a human being
yeah,
versus the brand itself, it's okay.
well, yes and no. Or is it? Like it's an interesting time. I think like a couple years ago, there's no way in hell you would so easily associate or dissociate with different people online and in public forums. But now it is a cry for help or a rallying cry to support something by associating with individuals that have certain actions and beliefs. And that's different. That's different than in the past where yes, there was that individual brand. I mean, just look at MLK and like all our presidents. There's so many names we can name, but they were movements, right?
Right. They
And
weren't
then
talking about specific people. They're
right.
talking about how people acted.
And then you would have more of these big name brands. They would take stands. Like, you think about Nike, I think did they end up aligning with Kaepernick when he took the yeah, they did.
Or Chick-fil-A, who doesn't open on Sundays.
Well, right. But so that like that's another example.
But I mean, so there's a lot of people that won't eat a Chick-fil-A because
won't eat a Chick-fil-A because they're anti-Semitic, they're anti a lot of things. But it feels different to say I'm not going to eat at Chick-fil-A versus I don't believe what the CEO and the founding team, whatever, but I'm still going to eat there.
Well, and this is again where if it's the action of one individual or if it's the actions of a company. So this is the difference, right? If you're dealing with one individual, which we were talking about, it's different. If they are working under a corporation, I don't care if it's the CEO. A lot of times I can't call up that CEO specifically just because the fact that someone on his team did something. Because again, human beings, no matter what container they're put in, will always be human beings and be able to make their own ethical judgments based on their beliefs.
But those human beings can ruin the reputation of a company.
Right.
So I think like in us kind of dissecting this, what we are saying, and we're just kind of proving this, is the personal brand is the most important piece in accelerating or completely ruining a company, period.
Okay.
An opportunity.
Well, and this is where that human voices, and this is where you and I talk about humanizing a brand, right? And going in to corporations and being able to empower the human beings at these companies. But at the same time, if you are empowering them, you have to be able to make sure that they all stand for a certain ethos. And this brings me back to God, I can't think of his name right now. It's Zappos. Why can't I think of the shoe company? Zappos.com with Tony Hsieh. He was one of the first people, and I was very blessed to know Tony and be able to get to spend time with them in Vegas before he passed. But he empowered all the human beings there at his company, and that's why he had such an amazing brand that people stood behind that wanted to work there and was picked up by Amazon in the long run. Basically, got rid of all the humanization of it then, but he empowered those people. But that because they stood for a certain ethos, they had their rallying cry, they all stood behind, and he trusted their judgment on who they were as human beings, not what they could do, but who they were. And I think that was very powerful and very, very early on before we talk about all this personal branding coming out right now. But if you do that at a big company now with the way that people are told they can and cannot be, or I mean, like how our kids watch just life in general on TV and news and YouTube and all the other stuff on what these actions of just people that honestly just don't I don't know, man. It's tough because I mean, I want to be better. When we talk about do I trust my own personal brand, I do now more than ever because my daughter comes back to me and she tells me that I listened to your podcast. It helped me do this, or I listened to you do this interview, or I've looked at all your other stuff, or hey, dad, this happened. You had the story about you in Vegas doing this, and she's proud.
Mm, mhm.
And I think that's the bigger thing is not do you trust your own personal brand? Would your kids trust your personal brand that you put out there online? I think that's a more powerful question. Look, a lot of people are
Some
like, well, I
people
don't have kids.
Yeah, some people don't have kids,
We
but I
get
mean
parents.
but I mean, yeah, I think regardless, like, who you really care about, right? And what would it matter what you're saying? How would it make them feel? Would you be okay with them listening and hearing? And that is different for every single person. I mean, you touched on a couple of things that I think we need to bring some clarity around
But
too.
that's fun. That's my ADHD wheel. You
Right. So
got
I
to be able
have
to
to
catch it quickly.
I know this is part of my personal brand and my mastery, and Josh and
Rachel
I,
lives in a house with everyone having ADHD.
mine, Ava does not, but yes, all of
Yet.
everybody else. She does not. And what I was gonna say, if you could just stop talking for a second, going back to the Zappos example, because I just like hit that for a second. The best companies and brands in the world can make their employees their advocates. I mean, the
Yeah.
employee advocacy and employee engagement conversation's been going on for well over a decade,
Well, and
right?
AGC content is one of some of the most
Employee
powerful.
generated content, which is all part of, employee advocacy and all these things, right? So it's like that's not a new conversation.
Yeah.
However, what we think at Humanize and we Stand on Authority is kind of this inverse of what a lot of brands and companies first do. They think about the mission, the vision, the goals, the revenue, the this and the that of what the company needs to achieve and how to reach their customer, hopefully, how they bring value and service best to their customer,
Fair.
which is all very, very important. And then how do we get the employees to get behind that? When the real mastery and opportunity is for the employees to master their personal brand,
Right.
for them to have an understanding of what their own mastery and skills and passions and what they really want to create is, and then have the company advocate and be a part of that and create the playground and the opportunities and team and community to
And that's for
nurture
sure.
that human being. And it's a giant shift. It's a giant flip on it, which is why when we talk to companies and we talk about our perspective on how to actually do thought leadership and executive communication, it's actually not about training. It's about empowering these voices to be their authentic selves. And what happens is when an individual, you, start to actually take ownership of your voice, of who you are. By the way, I'm speaking passionately about this because I am it. I am literally the embodiment of this shift from being the voice of the company and what other people and companies believe I should be to what does Rachel want? Who is she? How does she want to create and serve the world? When I flipped that shift in 2021 and start to focus on that, look at where we are today of the
Hallelujah.
impact of Stand Out Authority and now the founding of Humanize and Humanize Your Brand. None of that could have been possible in the lives I personally have touched if I hadn't started to think from that mindset. And very, very few companies think that way, which is why usually employee morale in most companies is, which is why many people are leaving, right? And we're seeing there's a lot of reasons for that, but a lot of people don't feel aligned with the companies that they're at. And so,
When you've had a lot of your friends, right? Like, so you've seen that shift because you talk about this. Like, I can't talk from the corporate perspective because I didn't live that. You always tell me when we talk to a lot of people too, I have to be careful because I'm like, hey, be yourself, like do whatever. You're like within the boundaries that the social rules that are set out by your company are laid out.
yeah,
And like you have to be careful and make sure those rules are aligned. But when you graduated with a lot of your friends and got your MBA at University of Texas,
yeah,
I thought it was crazy that a lot of you, not you specifically, but a lot of your friends went to college twice, much longer than most, and still hated their job.
Yes.
And they're like, well, it's a paycheck and I did this. And I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me because and now that they've been through the ringer through these corporations and like that, a lot of them are moving to smaller businesses
Yeah.
where they truly can be more of who they are, not what they're expected to be.
I think that's definitely the case for a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of more where that's coming
Yeah.
from. I mean, just for women, for example, for many of us that want to have babies, we want to be at a company, not me, of course. I needed to fund my own maternity leave, which lasted 6 weeks. But for the rest of the people that are employed, like I have many people like, I'm staying at this company. I'm going to cruise through this job, make sure I don't get laid off because I get 5, 6 month maternity leave. I have a friend that has had 3 babies and basically had a year and a half off worth at Microsoft, right? Can you imagine 3 babies and getting paid 6 figures for a year and a half's worth of time to raise those children?
I'm going to tell you that most people listening right now cannot imagine that because they've
Cannot imagine
never
it.
experienced
Never
that.
experienced it. So, I think this is like going in a lot of places, but like at the center of trustworthiness and authenticity is values and alignment. And our seasons of life, they're seasons of life. There are chapters and changes like Rachel in her 20s versus Rachel at 38, very different. And I wouldn't, and
You're
you
more blonde in your 20s.
not that much, water, but yeah. Yeah. And like your season of life, you having 2 kids by 30 and having multiple businesses making.
No, by 30. At 30, I had my first.
Yeah. Okay. You had your
Come
first.
on now.
Yeah. Jaden was at 30.
Pull back there. You're
But,
getting,
but still, like,
you're making me older than I am.
I think there are these like seasons of life, and like we can all look back and say, yeah, I was a little bit fake then. I was pretending to be super happy, but like that's what was working then. What I knew then was what I knew. And I think today, though, and as we kind of round out this conversation around personal branding and trust, especially in 2020, where trust is at an all-time low.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, machine learning, technology is at the fastest pace, most adoption it's ever been, right? In the history.
Sometimes a little too fast without actually checks and balances, but yeah.
Correct. Right. We're just like, whoa. So you kind of have to like kind of sink your feet in for a second and say, like, right here, right now, what do I need in my life? Right? How much money do I need to make? Like, being authentic and trustworthy might not mean that you're going to go online and create a newsletter like Rachel and Josh and say whatever you want and call people out, because like,
well, you don't
have a job and you need to keep that job. And you know what I mean? Like seasons of life call for different things. But I think what matters number one in this conversation is this value alignment. And that's up to you, what you value. I can't tell you. For me, integrity and trust, honesty, family, authenticity, like
family.
I've taken all sorts of these tests. I mean, and that remains clear. Like, this is who you are as a human. So I ask you, like, what are those values for you? Because if you will never come off authentic and trustworthy if you're trying to fake it for somebody else and you're not aligned with that internal compass of who you really are.
I agree with that. And this kind of goes through some of the things, right? We talk about LinkedIn. There's so many times I tell people, I go, you're not following anyone. Like the leaders, the LinkedIn influencers and stuff like that. Like, oh, well, why? Like I'm like, well, it also sets a tone on who you align with and who you don't, right? Like when you have those different people on, because you talk about who you associate with. Like, oh, I follow X, Y, or Z, right? Like Ariel Huffington or whoever, right? And I think and you're able to see that and it aligns you and then it helps your audience. And as AI is actually going through to be able to also help others and help us be able to find the people that we align with, the more of who we actually are and put ourselves out there rather than these fake versions. Because people go, oh, well, I hate all this content or it's not aligned or like, God, there's so much garbage Well, honestly, with AI and the way the algorithms are working right now online, not just human beings, but AI, they're just going off of what you've shown them.
Right. It's
And
picking up
so
the signals that
if
you're
you are
giving.
showing them the wrong signals because you're pretending to be something you're not, that is
And out.
that's it, baby. That's it. I mean, like that's the whole piece. And I mean, it's you if your consistency is, being able to look at that. I mean, like that's the whole thing. Like we talk about a lot of these different aspects, and I don't know. I want to say, I know that we've got written down, like you talk about being authentic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was interesting at Jim's event as well. And someone was on there, it's like authenticity wasn't actually, isn't a word for use for human beings, because we are authentic because we are ourselves. We're real people. Authentic or authenticity was based on, oh, is that an authentic Yeti mug or is it a fake?
Like real.
Right. And so like we're using it in a way that's not accurate for human beings.
I don't agree.
I'm just telling you what was stated. So you have to be able to think
But like authenticity is an adjective to describe a noun. A noun is he, she, him, Rachel. So you're describing.
This is why she went to college much longer than I ever did. So so she can
Like whoever said that.
This is where
I call BS.
This is where we need to make sure that Jaden comes in. He always goes, well, why do I need to know what a verb is?
Yeah.
There we go. Rachel just nerded it up for us. So, let's get back to the subject because
let's round
this is your true personal brand. Now you see the true Rachel that, calls everyone out shit and then uses her worldly
data
scholarships to
evidence fact. Evidence. That is a thing for me though.
It is.
It's a big thing.
But I mean, like some people won't show that, right? Like and I think that's important. So what are the takeaways from today's talk? Because you know me, I talked about so many different things. Like it probably
We did. I feel like we got somewhere though. Some good juiciness.
Thank you. Because if you don't guide me, then Josh doesn't know where to go.
It's funny because I listen. Like I, of course, want to get the one listen, on Apple and Spotify, but I go back and listen to our content, which Josh does not all.
I'm like the famous actors that have never watched their movies. Leonardo DiCaprio has never watched Titanic. That's kind of like me. I'm kind of Leo.
I call
except for
that's crazy. But my point is, I always listen to the episodes just to show you that's part of my perfectionism because I'm like, did we land that plane? Do we sound like idiots? I don't even know. And I'm like, oh, I'll text Josh. I'll be like, hey, we actually hit some good there.
If we did, or you put it in the comments, man, I was totally off on this. No, I didn't think so.
What hasn't happened yet? That's the
because we're perfect.
Because we're so good. But one thing that we want to do is try to make sure we have takeaways for episodes as much as possible. And one of the takeaways that we have for here is just this alignment with your values and your stage of your life is what brings forth that authority and brings forth that trustworthiness. So as you start 2026 and you're thinking through this for yourself, those vision boards and whatnot, what really feels good, what feels aligned. And feels literally ways you're going to know it's not right is you're ruminating, you're overthinking, you're feeling a clog in your chest or your throat, just something, it's the ick. If you watch that show, something just feels off, then it probably means that it's not the right thing to say, not the right group to join, not the right job for you, whatever the case is.
Yeah. And I mean, I have to believe you probably just, maybe to just watch my recent webinar because, I always say make them feel it first, but it's whatever. Rachel watches all my stuff. This
you
is
need to feel it, not other people.
But honey, this is the whole piece, right? You're right, because I look at this and I tell people all the time when they're writing their content, if you don't have any emotion, as human beings, we make decisions emotionally based on some degree of love or hate. And if you're just reading off content or doing something because you feel you have to, there's no emotion behind it. How can you accept and expect anyone else to have any feeling towards it either? That's it's that same alignment of feels, right? If you
it's that other takeaway. If it's feeling off, So it needs to be aligned.
Right.
You know, if it's aligned, if it
But
feels,
if it feels off, but at the same time, if you don't feel anything for doing it, you're just like,
yeah,
okay, well, here's, I mean, this is something that I did
it's
actually
just me. It's
so
so,
this morning I did a video. I was talking about what LinkedIn does, and they don't want you to they don't want content anymore, telling someone how to, the biggest visibility on LinkedIn right now is not the content that's telling you how to do something or how to feel. It's just being authentic on how it makes you feel, or how it's showing up for you, or how
yeah,
your
your
life is.
personal.
Right. And I mean, that's the content that's excelling. So I think that's the same aspect, right? Like, if it feels off for you, like, okay, this is how you do this, and I'm going to tell you how to push a button, and it's like, okay, well, cool, I gave that. Like,
Okay, let's wrap that one. Yeah.
I'm just saying, babe, it's just,
Yeah. So
I'm
if
done
it,
with it.
no, but you're right. So alignment first and foremost. Then if it feels off for you, then it's going to feel off for
But then also,
your
you need to be able
employees,
to
your
have
family,
consistency.
your team, everybody, right? It's going to feel off. And then lastly, yeah, I mean, the consistency is important. And I think I just want to be clear on the consistency. We don't just mean like make sure you post once a week, like consistency
And you
in like,
notice how she changed her voice for that.
yeah, not like consistency in doing the consistency in showing up with that alignment, and consistency in showing up in your authentic and true voice and self. That means actually taking a stand that people might not agree with. That means saying no and
Yeah.
putting up boundaries, which also feels uncomfortable. Consistently taking these actions shows others people that you're trustworthy.
Yeah.
When you start to do a lot of the flippy floppy, nobody knows who you are.
It's one of the biggest things I tell anyone that asked to work with us. I said, well, before, you know, you can come on as a client, right? Because we do choose who we get to work with and who gets to work with us. I would say, are you willing to draw a line in the sand, right? Like, on what you stand for? Because if you cannot sit here and draw a line in the sand, I'm going to tell you, first and foremost, when they sit down with either you or our team, like, you're going to call them out on their BS, like replicate, because it's the only way to truly show up in this world. I need to know that if we're going to work with you, like, that you're willing to put it all on the line for what you believe.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I think that's important. And I mean, this is where that same thing, right? And I think it goes back to something I've said for a long time: real and raw versus overproduced. Every single time, because real and raw people believe in. Overproduced, hell, I mean, I don't know if it's AI, I don't know if it's you, I don't know if you're just reading off a script.
Yeah.
And that's the consistency of being your authentic self.
Amen. Well, let us know what you thought about this conversation around trust and building your personal brand. We'd love to hear from you. Please say hi, rate, subscribe, leave a comment, all the things.
And we'll see you next time on Humanize Your Brand. And don't do that. Just follow us, y'all. We love to be able to connect with you. Talk to you soon. If today's episode sparked something in you, you don't have to keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who's building something with heart. And hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.
If you're ready to humanize your brand now and show up with soul, grab our free guide, 3 Hidden Signals, at standoutauthority.com/3, the number 3, hidden signals. We'll see you soon.